Hello out there, this is OGTV Main News. Thanks so much for joining us. I am Bukola Agbakisu. On the news, COVID-19 cases now 53 in Nigeria. Federal government plans ban on interstate and intracity transport. Group of 20 nations plans injection of $5 trillion into global economy. Italy records 683 coronavirus deaths in 24 hours. Turkish Boxing Federation tongue lashes IOC after 2 boxers tested positive. Elder citizens are the greatest asset any country can have. Now the news in full. The federal government says it will continue to reveal strategies that will help to stop the spread of coronavirus in the country, as it is strengthening contact tracing method advocacy at ensuring social distance compliance. These were part of submission of the Minister of Health, Dr. Osage Ehanire, at the press briefing to update Nigerians on the ongoing responses to the COVID-19 outbreak in Nigeria.
The Nigeria Center for Disease Control has deployed rapid response teams to affected states to support response activities. I want to here already strongly urge all health facilities at all levels, whether public or private, to be on high alert for healthcare and also for healthcare workers of all cadres to maintain a high index of suspicion and to give full cooperation to contact tracers everywhere. One major item in Nigeria's disease containment strategy is social distancing, which has been repeatedly announced. Directives have thus been issued at national and state levels to limit all large gatherings, including religious, social, and political gatherings, schools, events, and etc.
Dr. Ehanire says the federal government is working closely with states to conduct contact tracking to identify those who have been in close contact with confirmed cases.
The NCDC communication campaign titled Take Responsibility has kicked off. It is a call to all residents in the country to join hands to be proactive in taking greater individual and collective responsibility for the prevention and control of the spread of COVID-19 in Nigeria. You can join this collective effort via your social media platforms. I strongly urge individuals, businesses, professional bodies, media houses, and all committed Nigerians to take ownership of this campaign by developing and communicating prevention messages.
The health minister also assured of fair distribution of aids received, with Lagos State having large share. Latest report from the Nigeria Center for Disease Control has confirmed 5 new cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria, bringing the total count of cases to 51 in the country. 2 of the new cases are in Lagos, 2 in the Federal Capital Territory, and 1 in Rivers State. 3 of the 5 new cases are returned travelers into Nigeria, while 2 are close contacts of confirmed cases. The breakdown puts the number of cases in Lagos at 32, Abuja 10, Ogun State 3, Bauchi, Oyo, Edo, Osun, Ekiti, and Rivers with 1 each. Of the 51 confirmed cases in Nigeria, 48 are active cases. 2 of them have been discharged and 1 death recorded. Meanwhile, there are indications that about 6 more patients were being treated for COVID-19 in Lagos and would be discharged soon. Meanwhile, 2 persons have tested positive for coronavirus in Bauchi State. This was disclosed in a situation update given by the Commissioner for Health, Dr. Aliyu Maigoro, while addressing newsmen in Bauchi, the state capital, on Thursday. It was reported that 27 persons who had contact with Governor Mohammed were earlier placed on compulsory self-isolation in the state. The compulsory isolation, which covers a minimum of 14 days, is to determine their coronavirus status. It will be recalled that the state governor, Bala Mohammed, tested positive to coronavirus following contact with former Vice President's son, Mohammed Atiku Abubakar, who earlier tested positive to COVID-19. And still on COVID-19 pandemic, the federal government has said that it is considering to stop intrastate and inter-town travels. In a statement on Thursday, the Minister for Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, says that the nation's strategy at containing the pandemic is working, adding that the country still has a long way to go, while stressing that it does not mean to spread panic. The minister noted that bold measures have been taken and more steps of such nature need to be taken to ensure that Nigeria beats the virus. The minister stated that time is running out and enforcing aggressive measures is the only way, adding that there is a short window within which to stop the pandemic or face an explosion regarding the case. The federal government cannot be complacent, he added. The minister, who had earlier told Nigerians to brace up for tougher measures in the efforts to curtail the spread of the coronavirus pandemic, told newsmen that the government knows its priorities and challenges.
Time is running out. If we don't urgently and more aggressively enforce the measures, new measures from time to time, but rest assured that whatever decisions we take will be in the best interest of Nigerians. Busy engaging in meaningless criticisms instead of complying with stipulated directives to keep people safe. Some Nigerians who flee into the country from overseas filled wrong addresses and phone numbers in their phones, making it difficult to trace them when the need arises. Some Nigerians defied orders to stay away from large gatherings, while some religious leaders willfully flouted the directives to ensure social distancing. Some people up to now live in denial. They claim it will not be their portion.
He lauded the state governments that have taken bold measures to ensure that people are safe, including the closure of markets and the prohibition of large congregations. Mr. Mohammed, however, noted that the federal government is determined to be more aggressive in enforcing the measures aimed at containing the spread of the virus. Meanwhile, the President of the Senate, Ahmad Lawan, has called on federal government to immediately devise ways of providing relief for poor Nigerians whose daily livelihood will be affected as a result of the restriction on movement due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Lawan, according to a statement by his media aide, Israel Tabiowo, made the appeal following a meeting between the leadership of the National Assembly and some ministers and heads of government agencies in Abuja. The Senate President said apart from the lockdown of business activities in the country, a plan must be devised by the federal government through the release of funds specifically for the purpose of purchasing food and pharmaceutical supplies for ordinary Nigerians. He warned that not making provisions ahead of time to address the basic needs of poor Nigerians may likely lead to more problems for the government and less results in controlling the spread of the disease. The Senate President, in addition, urged the Nigerian Center for Disease Control to establish more testing and isolation centers as soon as more funds are released to it by the federal government. With several stricter measures in place to contain the spread of COVID-19, Ogun State government is again reminding the good people of the state that the ban on high-density gathering of not more than 20 people is still in force. This is in addition to other measures which include reduction in number of passengers to be carried by taxi cabs, tricycles, motorcycles and buses. In a statement by the Chief Press Secretary to the Governor, Kunle Shomori, the ban on high-density gathering also extended to places like cinemas, nightclubs, restaurants, cafes, halls, social clubs and sports arenas must be strictly observed as the nation strives to contain the spread of coronavirus outbreak. Also, all religious centers and activities, including regular and special services that bring together 20 or more persons in the same place, remain banned. The state government therefore emphasized the need to observe global best practice of social distancing as a way of curtailing the spread of the pandemic, and recommends that as much as possible, people should minimize contact with others and maintain a distance of at least 5 feet between one another in public places or in public transportation. The governor further encourages people to maintain a high level of personal hygiene and surveillance, while urging that suspected cases should be reported at the nearest primary health care center in all the 236 wards in the state or the emergency operation center on COVID-19 by telephone on 0818-897-8392 or 018-897-8393. The Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has disclosed that his government has gotten more equipment to sanitize and fumigate the state in a bid to curtail the spread of the coronavirus pandemic. Governor Sanwo-Olu made the announcement through his Twitter handle on Thursday. He said to ensure government keep the environment safe and curtail the contagion of COVID-19, the government is deploying disinfectant equipment to fumigate the entire state. The fumigation machines will be deployed to every part of the metropolis for sterilization of public places. Also, the Niger State government has directed the suspension of all congregational and weekly Friday prayers in all mosques across the state in the wake of the ravaging coronavirus pandemic. A statement issued by Secretary to the state government, Ahmad Ibrahim Matani, further disclosed that the state government has also suspended services in all churches in the state. The SSG, who is the chairman, the Niger State Task Force on COVID-19, explained that the suspension of the Jumat prayers and church services comes as part of the state government's precautionary measures being taken to prevent the spread of COVID-19 pandemic. Ahmad Matani appealed to the people of the state to abide by all instructions and guidelines issued by the state government, saying that coronavirus risk increase with mass gatherings. And still to come in the news, Federal Road Safety Corps arrests 144 motorists for overloading of passengers. More stories after the break. You are still watching OGTV Main News. Glad to have you back. The news continues. The Federal Road Safety Corps, FRSC, says it has arrested a total of 144 traffic offenders for overloading passengers' vehicles in a bid to mitigate the further spread of coronavirus among commuters in public transport. The Corps Marshal of FRSC, Dr. Boboye Oyeyemi, disclosed this in a statement by the Corps Public Education Officer, Mr. Bisi Kazim, on Thursday. According to Oyeyemi, all categories of transporters should ensure full compliance with the provisions of Regulations 108, subsection 1 of the National Road Traffic Regulation 2012 on the compulsory passenger manifest. He directed all public transport operators to apply necessary precautionary measures in their parks and terminals as failure to adhere strictly to this order would attract the necessary sanctions. Oyeyemi noted that putting down details of passengers on a manifest was mandatory and acceptable practice all over the world. He warned passengers to comply by filling the passenger's manifest before the journey commences. The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, has said 60.2 million teachers and 1.37 billion students, representing more than 3 out of 4 children and youth worldwide, are no longer in classroom due to the coronavirus pandemic. In a statement, UNESCO said school closure globally has impacted nearly 80% of the world's student population. It said an ad hoc group consisting of education ministers from Nigeria, Costa Rica, Croatia, Egypt, France, Iran, Italy, Japan, Mexico, Peru, and Senegal has been set up to look into the matter and come up with means to cushion the effects of the pandemic on education. Meanwhile, the United Nations Children's Fund has lamented that the likelihood of vulnerable children returning to school after the crisis is low. UNICEF Executive Director Erita Fo said the COVID-19 pandemic has affected children's lives in an unprecedented ways, while hundreds of millions of children will have to spend weeks and months away from their classrooms. She announced that the Global Partnership for Education has made an $8.8 million contribution to UNICEF to help children and young people in 87 developing countries access learning opportunities during the COVID-19 pandemic. She revealed that governments in 87 eligible countries will start receiving education funds from 38 March to support education systems' response to COVID-19. The executive director also disclosed that UNICEF would provide $4 million of resources to reach an additional 58 countries. With extensive news coverage about the potentially deadly nature of the COVID-19 pandemic, children may be ignorant about the risk to their own health and safety. To this end, parents have been urged to ensure they have an understanding of the virus first by providing accurate preventive information on basic hygiene measures to curb its spread. Shemilori Amore has the details in this package.
In sub-Saharan Africa, 63% of people in urban areas lack access to proper hand-washing facilities, according to UNICEF. As the COVID-19 outbreak continues to spread, the severity of illness varies from individual to individual.
So it's very important that you provide the safety nets of a wash hand station for anybody that is coming in, and enlighten the children to, as much as possible, stay away from people who are coughing, who are sneezing, and all of that. And you need to check continually on the history of everybody around in your area.
It's just to enlighten the parents that this coronavirus is real, because I have to put it on record that we still have some of our citizens, some of our parents that are seeing it as a child play. Now that the children are at home, they should please try as much as possible to take proper care of their children and to make sure that their proper hygiene is also being taken care of.
Nigerians, while acknowledging some levels of concern, says it is important to plan for any possible outbreak in Ogun State if the risk level increases in future by first educating children on simple hygiene techniques.
Where we live in environments that are controlled, where there are fences, where there are gates, it's important that possibly at the gate itself, anybody that comes in, you have a bucket with tap and soap, that everybody that comes into the environment must wash their hands very well before they come into the compound.
You know, you cannot leave your child to be running etasketa. You make sure you get hand sanitizer, you make sure you get soap and water for them to be washing their hands regularly. And to let them be indoor, You know, this is not the time to be going to the neighbor's house, to be running etasketa, doing all those things. They should be indoor. And the parents also should also take their hygiene to be very necessary. and very, very important.
According to them, with the immediate health risk in countries like Italy and Spain, hand washing is also key to protect people from infection, prevent spread of the virus in order to ward off diarrhea diseases and other common respiratory conditions. Shemilure Amore, OGTV News.
Still taking stories on COVID-19 pandemic. To a reasonable level, motorists in Abeokuta metropolis are adhering to the passenger reduction order by the Ogun State government as one of the precautionary measures put in place to caution the spread of COVID-19 in the state. Moving around Abeokuta, the state capital, one could observe a high level of compliance by citizens with visit to some motor parks. Elizabeth Esson gives us details.
On Monday, 23rd March 2020, Ogun State government intensified its efforts at containing the spread of COVID-19 in the state by extending the precautionary measures to the transport sector. The measure, which reads thus: all taxi cabs are directed to carry not more than 3 passengers at once with a maximum of 2 at the back. Tricycles to carry a maximum of 2 passengers at a time. Motorcycles are limited to 1 passenger and the rider must use nose mask, while buses are limited to 2 persons per row without standing, squatting, lapping or hanging. Is applied to all vehicles regardless of the ownership or use. Going around Abeokuta, the state capital, it was observed that not all the motorists adhere to this directive, as some were seen carrying more than the expected number of passengers. On the contrary, leaders of some of the parks visited claimed ignorance of non-compliance by motorists, as all measures were put in place at sensitizing them.
Initially, we used to take 3 on a seat, but presently now, we are taking 2. Anybody that's carrying more than passenger, I will ask the person to get down.
tó bá tight gbé méjì níwájú àwọn mọ́tò kan àti pé ẹyọkan ló ń gbé irú àwọn Lagos car wa náà sin ẹyọkan níwájú mẹ́ta ní tó máa fi gbé mẹ́rin tẹ́lẹ̀ mẹ́ta ló gbé.
Some of the commuters who spoke with OGTV News commend the initiative, adding that it will in no small measure reduce the risk of spreading the virus.
They have been cooperating with the government and they have not been even harsh in any way. So we thank them for that. And we pray generally that God in His infinite mercy will get us out of this coronavirus saga.
Though the distance is not quite, it's not enough, but we just have to, you guard yourself, and so that's because usually it's a distance of 1.5 meters, but we can't have it in this vehicle.
As recommended number of passengers is adhered to, it is expected that motorists will hike transport fare for their own gain. This, however, was not the case in all the parks, but where fares are hiked, commuters say the increase is reasonable enough.
Iye tó ń gbé mọ́tò náà ní 700 naira náà ló ń gbé nítorí mẹ́ta so láti dẹ̀ náà mẹ́ta làwa ń gbé.
They thank them because before, even little issues like this, they will have skyrocketed the price like double or times 3, even during festive season that they have no reason to do that. But for this one, that is very obvious that there is a problem, that even globally everybody is dealing with it. So they have been very helpful.
Because he has reduced a passenger on this road is taking 1,200, which we feel is still a little bit reasonable because it has to do with our own health too. So we have to bear the cost.
On social distancing measure, some organizations in the metropolis are strictly adhering to it as necessary provisions were made for personal hygiene and gathering of not more than 20 people. Elizabeth Esson, OGTV News.
Sekbol and Sons Nigeria Enterprises has extended its fumigation exercise to markets in Adudota local government area of Ogun State in a bid to reduce disease caused by pests and rodents. The organization also sensitized the traders to always keep proper personal and environmental hygiene for the safety and that of the customers. Ife Sholuade has details in this report presented from our studio.
With the increasing rate of outbreak of diseases caused by preventable man-made actions, the general public have been admonished to inculcate the habit of keeping the environment clean and serene. With the sensitization for market men and women to close early, preparatory to the fumigation exercise, officers of Segbol and Sons Nigeria Enterprises then moved in. And as part of measures to achieving this objective in Ogun State, Segbol and Sons Nigeria Enterprises has been endorsed by the state government to fumigate all markets in the state in order to prevent diseases contracted through contaminated edibles from pests and rodents. Traders across Songwater markets have also benefited from the fumigation exercise, which is believed to be an added value to their weekly sanitation exercise geared towards ridding the market of vectors. The 2 weeks fumigation exercise by Segbol and Sons Nigeria Enterprises, which commenced in Abeokuta, the state capital, also touched Remo, Shagamu, including Ijebu-Ode markets. Markets fumigated at Ota axis includes Obatiti Dada traditional market, Ojo-Ore market, Ijoko Ota road to Ota flyover.
If the current spread and situation of the coronavirus pandemic in Nigeria is beyond the situation, there is likely going to be a shift in some elections that should come up later this year. This was a submission of the Ogun State Resident Electoral Commissioner, Professor Abdugani Raji, on Ogun State Television Current Affairs Program, Democratic Path, with the topic COVID-19 and Nigeria's political landscape.
Some 1 week or 2 weeks ago, majority of them had their congresses and their primaries for the local government, even though they are suspended now. Yes. For the time being. Okay, but of course the process started some few weeks ago, and so I don't see any reason why anybody should take advantage of that and start, putting so much pressure on us or putting us under stress for extension, for this, for that, and whatever. Well, the real timetable for that election has not been released already. We only released the date. We announced the date. So the timetable for that election is not affected by anybody. I mean, by any of our activities, the suspension of our activities. We have not seen epidemic or pandemic or any plague lasting for that long. So we hope that before then, it will have actually been a thing of the past, and we will go ahead with our own planning. So we are still working in our offices, and so our activities are ongoing. So we are still planning for that election. But the elections that are supposed to take place within this period have all been suspended for now.
Although Professor Raji said the commission is ever ready, but there are some processes that should be followed before any election should take place. Professor Raji also used the medium to enjoin all to stay safe and follow the rules and regulations of the health officers at this moment. In the face of the gradual lockdown of the states and the nation as a result of the raging coronavirus, the leadership of the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN, on Thursday says it has made all arrangements to sustain the supply and distribution of petroleum products across the country. The chairman, Kano branch of IPMAN, Alhaji Bashir Damalam, arising from an emergency meeting with members in Kano, disclosed this on Thursday. Dan Malam said the union was duty-bound to rise to the occasion and contribute their own quota in the fight against the deadly pandemic. According to him, in consideration of the pivotal role petroleum products play as the engine room of the economy, IPMAN, as an essential service provider, would keep all its outlets open for business to lessen the impact of the restriction placed on people and businesses. He further called on all its members to adhere strictly to the advice and directives of health officials from the Federal and State Ministry of Health and NCDC, as well as local health officials. In its continuous efforts as promoting a clean, safe and healthy environment, the Ogun State monthly environmental sanitation exercise for the month of March will hold on Saturday 28th across the 20 local government areas from 7 to 10 in the morning. A statement by the Commissioner for Environment, Honorable Abiodun Abudu Balogun, says there will be full restriction of movement, adding that anyone that fails to comply with the restriction order or acts in breach of the state environmental law will be duly prosecuted. The state government therefore enjoined residents to use the opportunity of the exercise to clear their drainage channel and ensure that their premises and surroundings are kept clean, especially at this time. The government therefore solicits the continuous support of law enforcement agencies and the general public to make the exercise a huge success. The Agura of Bagura land, His Royal Majesty Oba Saburi Babajide Bakre Jamolu II has commended President Muhammadu Buhari and Ogun State Governor Prince Dapo Abiodun for their efforts at halting the spread of coronavirus pandemic in Nigeria and in Ogun State. The commendation is contained in a release by the KBAC in which he specifically lauded President Buhari and Governor Abiodun for massively promoting measures against the pandemic like regular hand washing, use of alcohol-based hand sanitizers, avoidance of crowded locations, especially religious houses, social gatherings, and ensuring of timely medical checkups. The Agura of Bagura appealed to people of Bagura not to treat with levity all these measures against the dreaded virus. He also implored people to fully comply with government's restrictions on social and religious gathering, adding that they are of good intentions, specifically meant to protect lives of Nigerians and not to impede their freedom. The Armed Forces of Nigeria has destroyed some structures belonging to elements of the Islamic State of West Africa province ISWAP in airstrikes conducted at Muktu in the northern part of Borno State. The mission was executed by the air component of Operation Lafia Dole as part of the ongoing subsidiary Operation Decisive Edge after intelligence surveillance and reconnaissance. Flight indicated that the ISWAP elements were using some compounds in 2 locations within the settlement to store their logistics as well as train their fighters. According to a statement by Acting Director, Defense Media Operations, Defense Headquarters, Bernard Oyeko, Operation Lafia Dole dispatched its fighter jets to engage the identified compounds, scoring accurate hits, leading to the destruction of the structures as well as the neutralization of the occupants. The Armed Forces of Nigeria, in furtherance of the objective of restoring peace and security in the Northeast, will continue to sustain the massive offensive against the enemies of the nation. On business news, World Bank and IMF ask bilateral creditors to suspend repayment from developing countries. More business stories after the break. Welcome to the business segment of the news. The leaders of the world's 20 largest economies promised to inject more than $5 trillion into the global economy as part of the coordinated response to the coronavirus pandemic. The leaders say they are injecting more than $5 trillion into the global economy as part of targeted fiscal policy, economic schemes to counteract the social, economic and financial impacts of the pandemic. Contained after the conclusion of the virtual meeting led by Saudi Arabia, finance ministers and central bank governors of the G20 countries will coordinate and work closely with international organizations to develop and deliver appropriate international financial assistance. The World Bank and the International Monetary Fund have asked bilateral creditors to suspend debt repayments from International Development Association countries that have requested forbearance. The global financial institutions in a statement to the G20 concerning debt relief for the poorest countries, adding that this will help IDA countries' immediate liquidity needs to tackle challenges posed by coronavirus outbreak. They warned that the coronavirus outbreak would have severe economic and social consequences for countries with these nations classified as 2/3 of the world's population living in extreme poverty. Nigeria's refineries under the management of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation incurred a total expense of 218.18 billion naira in 2019. The refineries, namely Kaduna Refinery and Petrochemical Company, Port Harcourt, and Warri Refinery and Petrochemical Company recorded a cumulative loss of 149.23 billion naira last year. The refineries have a combined installed capacity of 445,000 barrels per day, but have continued to operate far below the installed capacity. Figures obtained from NNPC showed that the refineries recorded cumulative revenue of 68.96 billion naira, but jointly incurred a total expense of 218.18 billion naira during the year under review. The oil commodity terms of trade index for Nigeria increased marginally by 0.81% in the fourth quarter of 2019 due to increase in the prices of vegetable products like animal products and prepared foodstuffs. This is even as oil commodity group import index fell by 3.7%, while group export index decreased by 2.6%. The national price index and terms of trade in the fourth quarter of 2019. The increase is explained mainly by a 2.75% rise in the prices of goods traded with Asian countries. And that was the business segment of the news. Now to foreign news. The United States of America indicted Venezuela Nicolas Maduro on narco-terrorism charges, as also Italy has recorded 683 coronavirus deaths in the last 24 hours. Let's now join Olayinka Shedunke on The World Today.
Welcome to The World Today. The number of coronavirus cases in Europe topped 250,000, more than half of which are in the hard-hit Italy and Spain. But over the last 24 hours, both countries reported improvement. Spain registered 655 fatalities from the coronavirus, down from more than 700 on Wednesday, while Italy confirmed a lower rate of infections. The World Health Organization European office said it saw encouraging signs, cautioning it was too early to say whether the worst had passed. More than 494,000 people around the world have been diagnosed with COVID-19, according to data collected from Johns Hopkins University. About 118,000 have recovered, while more than 22,000 people have died. The United States Department of Justice announced on Thursday that it has indicted Venezuela's socialist leader Nicolas Maduro and several key aides on charges of narco-terrorism.